Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajachanandana Nandana Brajachanandana Jasodhanandana Brajachanandana Nandana Brajachanandana Yamanatira Vanachani Jamanatira Vanachani Tira Vanachani Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopijana Balabha Giri Girivardhari Gopijana Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajachanandana Nandana Brajachanandana Jasodhanandana Brajachanandana Nandana Brajachanandana Yamunatira Vanachani Yamunatira Vanachani Tira Vanachani Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivijayacharya Astatara Sattasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing with Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 36. 36. Yeah. Text 36. We just heard a very beautiful verse, and other than just reading through this chapter, it has its it's a well-known verse where Brahma is praying for some special mercy. How is it that you're going to repay the resident of Vrindavan? You gave yourself to Putana And all she did was she dressed up like a devotee. Not only gave yourself to her, you gave liberation to her two brothers. And they didn't do any service at all. But the residents of Vrindavan, they've given everything to you, so how are you going to repay them? My mind is bewildered just to think about how you're going to do it. And essentially he's wanting, since they're so much a recipient of Krishna's favor, he wants their favor. You know what to have a debt means? You owe something to somebody. Somebody gives you and now you're a debtor. You owe them something. You've heard of that, right? Debt? So supposing somebody gives you some money, or they loan you some money, then you're obliged to pay that back. You're in debt. So now, the residents of Vrindavan, they've given everything to you. To Putana, you gave yourself. To the residents of Vrindavan, you've also given yourself and Vrindavan. So what are you going to do for the residents of Vrindavan? You're indebted to them. How are you going to repay them? I want the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan. I, Lord Brahma, want the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan. Residents of Vrindavan, you're dedicated to them. I'll get you. If I get the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan, I'll get you. That's my plan. Very intelligent. Now here's the next verse. 36, Brahma says, my dear Lord Krishna, until people become your devotees, their material attachments and their desires, attachments and desires, two things, remain thieves. Their homes remain prisons, and their affectionate feelings for their family members remain foot shackles. Purport. Apparently, the residents of Vrindavan, the abode of Lord Krishna, are simple householders engaged in ordinary affairs such as herding cows, cooking, rearing children, and performing religious ceremonies. However, all these activities are intensely engaged in the loving service of Lord Krishna. The residents of Vrindavan perform all activities in pure Krishna consciousness, and thus exist on the most exalted platform of liberated life. Otherwise, the same activities performed without Krishna consciousness constitute ordinary bondage to the material world. Thus, one should not misunderstand the exalted position of the residents of Vrindavan, nor should one consider oneself highly religious simply because one performs ordinary domestic affairs very enthusiastically, but without Krishna consciousness. By focusing our passionate attachment on our family and society, we are completely deviated from the progressive path of Krishna consciousness. Conversely, if we engage our family in the loving service of the Lord, our endeavors to maintain our family become part and parcel of our progressive spiritual duties. In conclusion, by studying the extraordinary status of the residents of Vrindavan, we can see that the essential quality of their lives is pure Krishna consciousness, the rendering of loving service to the Lord without any trace of material desire or mental speculation. Such loving service to the original personality of God, it immediately creates an atmosphere of Sri Vrindavan Dham, the kingdom of God. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, paraphrasing, the sannyasis will object that the inhabitants of Braja are fallen in the net of material life in the form of attachment to sons and wife. However, what to speak of the householders of Braja, even your ordinary devotees in other places are superior to the sannyasis. Attachment and aversion are great thieves, because they steal the great treasure of the great bliss from the soul. The souls are bound up in the prison of household life so that they cannot criticize the Supreme Lord after having lost their wealth. As long as people do not get the mercy of your devotees and become your followers, they remain in this position. When they become your devotees, they develop attachment for bhakti and aversion to things obstructing bhakti. They become absorbed in you. These thieves, attraction and repulsion, expecting to grasp the great treasure of unlimited knowledge and bliss, when they become fixed in you, give up their bad qualities and instead do good services to others. The house, which was a prison by performance of pious and impious activities, binding them up, become a means of attaining the eternal Dham through activities of serving you and singing your glories. When the jiva becomes the devotee of Krishna, then the bewilderment, moha, from objects, formerly their wife and sons, become causes of the expression of prema, anubhav. How can the sannyasis compare to this? My son, Sanat Kumar, has said the following to show the inferiority of such people and superiority of the devotee. 422:40 he says, the ocean of nescience is very difficult to cross because it is infested with many dangerous sharks. Although those who are non-devotees undergo severe austerities and penances to cross that ocean, we recommend that you simply take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are like boats for crossing the ocean. Although the ocean is difficult to cross, by taking shelter of His lotus feet, you will overcome all dangers. And the inhabitants of Braja have even thousands of times much greater prema than these Grihastha devotees. Grihastha devotees, the Brijvasis, have thousands of times much greater prema than these Grihastha devotees spoken of by Sanat Kumar. Though you are Purna Brahman, you show yourself as dependent upon these devotees by taking the form of their son. Now that's speaking of the 1 year that passed, not just a month or a week or a day, but a whole year. Krishna assumed the form of his dear friends, the cowherd boys, and became the sons of their parents, showing dependent upon his parents, upon the boys' parents. Now Krishna is not dependent upon anybody, who can appear as whoever he wants to appear and live for a whole year without the parents even knowing that it's not their son. So he's not dependent upon anybody. But he feels so responsive to their love for him that he places himself as if dependent upon them by becoming their sons. So you can just expand that easily and say Krishna becomes the son of Yasoda Nanda. Where's the theology that says you pray to God as your son? in the world, there isn't such a theology. Even in Vaikuntha, there isn't such a theology. In Dwarka and Mathura, there isn't such a theology. Well, in Mathura, Krishna becomes the son of Vasudeva Devaki. But he doesn't stay there. But they have that mood. And in Vrindavan, he is the son of Vasudeva, he is son of Nanda and Yasoda. We had this interesting two things. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks of Krishna's transcendental pastimes that are eternal, Nitya Lila, and Krishna's transcendental pastimes that are occasional, or worldly, or Naimitika Lila. And one of those is taking birth as the son of Yasoda and Nanda. And there's other occasional pastimes like killing of demons, and the occasional pastime of leaving Vrindavan, because he never leaves Vrindavan. According to Rupa Goswami, in his, forget the title of the book, Radha Krishna something something something, he gives details of the personalities in Vrindavan. And there he says that Balaram and Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, they're eternally 16. There's no childhood pastime. I found that very surprising. Like what? No childhood pastime in Vrindavan? So that, yes, that's part of the, to say he is taking birth as the son of Nanda Yasoda. What about, all the other activities up until, not just killing of demons, but all the childhood pastimes? It's not there in Goloka. According to Rupa Goswami, he's eternally 16. He doesn't become 16 and then stays 16. He's eternally 16. So those are occasional pastimes, all of them. So now, in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, fasten your seatbelt, we're going to take off for a little journey. In the final section of Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Gopakumar has returned to Vrindavan. Krishna has embraced him, and he gives him a spiritual name, Sarupa. Before it was Gopakumar, and thereafter it's no longer Gopakumar. It's Sarupa. And Sarupa goes back and forth between Upper Golok and the worldly Gokula, back and forth. It's saying, I don't even recognize the difference. I don't know where I am. Other than, he passed through the heavenly planets to come down to this earthly realm. And then he went back up. So he knows where he is. But once he's there, they look the same, identical. And it's in this earthly realm that he meets one Brahmana who was searching and searching and searching. There's a long description of. So he sees this little boy, Gopakumar, now Sarupa, and he asks him spiritual questions. And Gopakumar, this is the context. Normally one doesn't speak about oneself to explain things because that's not, it's immodest. But I can't think of a better way to explain, so he describes his whole journey. And when he's describing to this Brahmin, the final chapter, he's describing the pastimes in Goloka where there's demons. You familiar with that? You've heard of it? Okay. One nice devotee in Detroit, he's I think 16 years old, 17 years old, something like that. Maybe he's 18. We were discussing, he read the whole section. And there are many places where Sarupa or Gopakumar refers to demons and Kamsa and Akrura coming and this and that, but he never really sees them. I asked him, read it carefully. Does he actually see the demons? No. So, question. Are there demons? Or was there the bhava, the emotion that there's demons? Just like, not exactly like, but quite similar to Krishna's childhood pastimes in Vrindavan. There's no childhood pastimes, but there's the bhava that Krishna does these things. Mother Yasoda certainly feels Krishna does those things. Yet he's eternally 16. So when Krishna performs his worldly pastimes, his Bhoma Lila, there it is. That bhava now becomes manifest in Prakat Lila. So there are two schools of thought. One school of thought is from reading that section from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Shivaram Maharaj writes, we haven't had a discussion about this yet. He writes very clearly, there are demons that are just flickering presence there because for Krishna's pleasure. They're not really of demoniac spirit. It's there for Krishna's pleasure because the demons, they want to kill Krishna. They're not just play acting, actors on the stage. Okay, that's my script, okay. They want to kill Krishna. They're actually demons. So there's a school that says they're there fleeting but in the mood of service because you can't have people antagonistic to Krishna in the spiritual world. Or there's the bhava presence of such personalities that's for the sake of Krishna's pastimes. Like, this is what Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj says. There's no demons. But someone comes running, some unknown Brahmin comes running through Vrindavan. Look out! Aristasura is coming! Aristasura is coming! And then that Brahmin disappears. It knows there's no Aristasura. But there's the bhava. Oh, Aristasura is coming, Krishna! The same bhava that they feel when Aristasura is coming. So there's two schools of thought. I know which one I prefer. But it doesn't mean that if this is right, then that's wrong. And if that's right, then this is wrong. Isn't that a mystery? Mystery within a mystery within a mystery. Like on this topic of there's no childhood pastimes in Vrindavan. I had that question. I heard that being said in one class. I did some reading, did some research, and found what I just described in Rupa Goswami's writings, in Rupa Nugas. Rupa Goswami says in Goloka, Krishna, well, he doesn't say Krishna, he says Balaram and his Krishna's friends, eternally 16. So what do we know what's going on in Goloka Vrindavan? We hear from our acharyas, or from scripture, or both, and then that's how we know, because how do we know? So I consulted Burjan. He said, I haven't decided yet. He said, maybe when we go there, we can send people back a postcard and say, yes or no. You know, how do we know? We know from authority, and what our authorities may differ on such an important, fundamental matter. Are there childhood pastimes in Goloka or not? Is there a childhood form of Krishna or not? And it's not just Rupa Goswami, there's other places, without going into the detail, there's other scriptural references from our acharyas. Now it's not within the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is our ultimate pramana, right? That's it. Supreme Court. But supposing there's things that are not in that Srimad Bhagavatam, what do we do? Look the other way, or close our eyes, or shrug our shoulders, or we accept the words of our great acharyas, trusting in their fidelity, their fixed position, like samadhi, completely absorbed in Krishna and nothing but Krishna. And they're disclosing things about what's Krishna up to. The nature of Krishna, and Krishna's everything. It's not fiction when they're describing Krishna's pastimes. It's Krishna's pastimes. We accept that. That for us, that's pramana. Aparusheya shabda pramana. Beyond the fallibility of a conditioned soul. And now we have two of such authorities, or multiple, saying different things. Not just about Krishna's pastimes. We have the four sampradayas. We accept because the scripture says, and our disciplic mind authorities say, there are four bona fide disciplic successions. And when you start getting into it, what they say is different. No, we normally don't go there. In what ways are they different? But if you go there, they're different. Even within our own mind. I've been listening carefully to a really nice description of the nine essential, nava prameyas, the nine. There's pramana and there's prameya. That which is to be known is prameya. And many of them are a one-to-one match between Madhva's teaching and Lord Chaitanya's teaching. But there's some really different, significant differences. One of them is, there's not a Vaikuntha realm in the spiritual sky, there's a Vaikuntha planet. And those that become liberated don't necessarily go to that Vaikuntha planet, but they become some place somewhere within the world, and they can occasionally go and visit and pay their respects to Lord Vishnu, and then return to their liberated services wherever they are in the universe, which is very distinct from Lord Chaitanya's teachings and any of the other disciplic succession teachings. Here's another one. Get ready. The goddess of fortune is the jiva. There's no distinction of Shakti Tattva and Jiva Tattva. She is the most exalted jiva. And from her comes her expansion, that's Prakriti. Very different. Extremely different. Extremely different. Nothing quite like that, not and only in our Lord Chaitanya's teachings. So, what do when you find things out like that? And there's jivas. Here's another one. You're eternally situated. If you're a tamasic jiva, you're a tamasic jiva. No elevation to a rajasic or sattvic jiva. And only sattvic jivas can achieve liberation. Liberation looks like this, we just described. We're in Madhvacharya's disciplic succession. It's quite different. We don't go, this is right and that's wrong, or that's right and this is wrong. We don't do that. Our acharyas didn't do that. One of Bhaktisiddhanta's one of the fundamental pillars of his outreach, or his effort to unite the four sampradayas. Those of you that have visited in Mayapur, you know that in where his headquarters, Chaitanya Mat, there's the Gandharvaka Giridhari temple, and way back when I visited in the 70s, there were little, on each of the corners, four corners, there were little murtis. Now there's much larger ones, but establishing Lord Chaitanya was the unification of these four sampradayas, and he wrote about them and respected them, and respected differences. He indicates the teachings, and we accept them as bona fide teachings, but they're quite different, even in our own line. So then, now back to Goloka Vrindavan. And there's different, within our own acharyas, our exalted acharyas. They say different things about different things. About different things. Here's one example that I've come across. At the time of Krishna's birth, it's the very next day was Nandotsava. Nanda Maharaj had a big festival, Utsav festival. And he gave away cows in charity. And one of our acharyas gives the number of the cows that he gave in charity, and another one is like 20 times that number of cows. It's huge difference, and it's very specific. So is it this or is it that? And if it's that, it can't be this, and if it's this, it can't be that. Why are they saying two different numbers anyways? Like, how do we You probably didn't expect to get confused coming to this evening's class. But it's a little lesson in appreciating that our acharyas will have different realizations about the same thing. I mean, in life, here's an event, and there are persons that are experiencing that event, and they're going to report their experience differently. Supposing they're in a court and they have to report what their experience was, it's going to be different for each person. Now, there's going to be some similarities, and there's certainly going to be some differences. Okay, they're conditioned souls. Now we got pure devotees, and they're going to have different experiences. Yeah, they're going to have different. So, yadrashi shraddha, siddhi bhavati tadrashi. I'm starting to appreciate that more because it's true. Siddhi bhavati, Bhaktisiddhanta's translation is, realization arises, siddhi bhavati, according to what? Shraddha. Krishna reciprocates differently with each person according to their shraddha. They can be quite similar, they can be quite different. Take Krishna's pastimes, even amongst the Brijvasis. When the twin Arjuna trees fell, there was all kinds of different ideas of what happened. The Brahmanas thought, maybe it's true. The cowherd boy said, it's true. Nanda Jasoda said, "Oh, children's talk." So if they're perfected souls, and they have a relationship with Krishna, according to their relationship with Krishna, they experience and they understand X or Y or Z. So what's really important here is the unalloyed love for Krishna. And if that unalloyed love for Krishna is there, and that the person who has that unalloyed love for Krishna is representing Krishna's activities this way or that way, we can appreciate this is this devotee's relationship with Krishna, and he's narrating it in this way or that way. It's something very similar to the whole of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It's the context of it is it's Janamejaya's having narrated to Janamejaya's teacher, Jaimini Rishi. Jaimini Rishi is narrating a Mahabharata different. Right? Jaimini Rishi is narrating a Mahabharata that's different than Vyasadev's Mahabharata. And Janamejaya goes, wow, that was good. I've never heard a Mahabharata like that. Is there a supplement? It's called a Kila? Yes. And then he narrates Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And in that Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we will find some mind-blowing things. We'll find some mind-blowing things. And it's Sanatana Goswami who is composing it. It's not fiction. They're mind-blowing things. One of the ones I like a lot is the killing of the Keshi demon. In the Bhagavatam, we read the killing of the Keshi demon, he's finished. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Krishna doesn't kill him, he tames him, he keeps him in a corral, and from time to time the cowherd boys go horseback riding. Is it fiction? So is it this or is it that? There's variety in Krishna's pastimes. But that's lovely. It's part of the mind-blowing sweetness of Krishna. It's never the same. It's very, very fluid. So we don't have the adhikar, the qualification, to describe Krishna's pastime, because that would just be fiction. But persons that have in samadhi, in trance, in total absorption in Krishna, they experience Krishna's pastimes that are not just noted in Vyasadev's samadhi, because that's what the Bhagavatam is, isn't it? It's Vyasadeva Samadhi. And does that mean he's the only one that can have Samadhi? So if they have Samadhi and they experience Krishna's pastimes, and it's a little different than in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, what do? Maybe you can, okay, this gets transcendence 10, this gets transcendence 9. We don't do that. It's transcendental or it's not. The absolute truth is variegated. Very personal, very loving, and quite variegated. when Krishna Prabhupada taught it very simply, I'm going into some detail, but part of what helps me process all this is Prabhupada's explanation that when Krishna appears, his pastimes are like a spool. And he used that phrase, my understanding is, because he would detail it sometimes, like in films previously, it was moving pictures, literally, and it was wrapped on like thread is on a spool, so it was called a spool. It would take this big thing, spool of moving pictures, put it on a projector, run the spool through a light, and it looks like moving pictures, but it's just little pictures moving. So Prabhupada would say, like a spool, Krishna's pastimes would occur, but with slight variation, because variety is the mother of enjoyment. Variety is the mother of enjoyment. You may like cookies, but you can't just eat cookies or one thing. You can't just eat one thing. It's not healthy, but for taste and for health, you need variety. So Krishna's pastimes are variegated. That's easy. And one acharya is experiencing this feature, another acharya that feature of the variegated pastimes of Krishna. And that's beautiful. And it's quite natural, because variety is the mother of enjoyment. And Krishna is the best of enjoyers. It's not only one thing. Not always the same. It's like, it's not a rerun. Moving pictures, it's a rerun. But Krishna's pastimes is variegated with the same spool, same basic theme of his pastimes. He appears and he does this and that. And then he departs. It's really a deep mystery. And even having discussion about this type of topic, it doesn't exist in other theologies. Like what is God doing in the kingdom of God? But the Bhagavatam is giving us that, it's disclosing that. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. And the wonderful narrations of our acharyas about Krishna's pastimes, specific, like what's Krishna feeling when Brahma does this and Krishna says that. It's very confidential. It's a very confidential literature. Highly personal, very sweet. And it stimulates the sound vibration itself, the literature itself stimulates our spontaneous and ecstatic love for Krishna, who we've just forgotten, like big time. And thus our lives as devotees emerge from that. Great fortune. Brahmas are the original preceptor of our disciplic succession. So his contemplations are very important for us. And his contemplation is how vastly fortunate, how amazingly fortunate are the residents of Vrindavan. I wish to get their mercy. Now this verse is, by getting that mercy, then detachment from trying to be an enjoyer while doing the very same things that one will otherwise do, but without the mood of enjoyment, but the mood of intense love for Krishna. Sthanes tatakshruti gatam tanavan manobir. And they're exhibiting it in its perfection, staying in their position, but they're more exalted than the demigods, what to speak of other grahastas or sannyasis or brahmanas or something. They're worshipable. The demigods worship them. The demigods cannot approach them. No, they're not thinking, we're up there and demigods are down there, they can't approach us. We're too lofty. They're not thinking like that, but they are like that. Their qualities are astounding, resting upon their love for Krishna, which is astounding. And their detachment from all the things that they're involved with. They're fastidious in doing their duties. They're not lax. There's this nice discussion when Krishna is stealing butter. You know the name of Krishna when he steals butter? It starts with an M. Milk and Shore. Very good. So when Krishna is stealing butter, the ladies, they go complain to Mother Jasoda. They say, we can't even do our household duties. They're attached to doing their household duties. If they can't do their household duties, they're disturbed. Although they're not attached, they're as if attached. Because it's their offering of their love for Krishna. Even when they go back home, and they're with their children, they're thinking that they're doing their duties in their household for Krishna. That's how strong is their love for Krishna. So a Krishna conscious householder doing household duties is doing those duties for Krishna. In the spontaneous stage, and then the prema stage, there's nothing but that. But they don't neglect their duties. It's a very elevated state of consciousness, and our hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is inviting us into getting a nice picture of what's it like. Because you can read about something. This is a good example. Supposing you read about ideal household life. You hear what's it look like? And you can read a book what it looks like. But then when you see it, here's a real example of how ideal household life. Oh, I remember reading that, and here's what it looks like. So part of what we're supposed to be doing is the ideal Vaishnavas in the world, living our lives for the benefit of not just our little Bhakti Vriksha groups, but the world. And thinking broadly, what's a life of being attached to Krishna look like? As a sannyasi, or as a student, or as a householder. We're not there yet, but we're being introduced to the process that takes us there. And then continue by the dedication, Sanmukharitam Bhavadiya Vartan, by that dedication to the topics of Krishna, to go to Krishna. Following in the footsteps of the great souls that are attached to the association of the Brijbasis. It's attached to the mercy of the Brijbasis. Okay. I had no plan to speak about all that stuff. See if there's some discussion. Yeah, we have a microphone. It's just getting a sanitized treatment here. No, you can ask your question.
How do you get to the stage of prema?
How do you do what?
How do you get to the stage of prema?
How do you get to the stage of prema?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Well, you have a good teacher that gives good teachings, and you have a lot of faith in that teacher and their teachings, and you apply those teachings very carefully. Like, not just on the external behavior side, but, on the heart with it.
Okay.
That's sadhana stage to get to the prema stage.
Okay.
Okay. You can take a message when you speak.
Like here is Brahma, who is the topmost jiva, and he is wanting to take the mercy of the devotees in Vrindavan.
Yes.
And here we are in with so many anarthas.
Yeah.
What is the hope that we'll make it there one day?
It's not, the eligibility is in the eagerness to achieve it. It's not how far you've gone in X number of lifetimes to get to the stage where you are today. You're as eligible as Brahma, in other words. We, in the evenings prior to now, we were discussing the Dhruva pastime. Prabhupada writes in 2 successive verses, purports, in the final chapter, that what Dhruva attained is available for anyone. And then the next one, what Dhruva attained is available for everyone. Now, we can't do the austerities that Dhruva did. We don't have the birth that Dhruva had. We don't this and that, but it's part of our Bhagavad Dharma teaching that perfection is meant for each of us, that we may have a greater distance to go, but the distance is going to be crossed by Krishna's mercy and our effort, not by what we've done before we got to this place. There has to be some effort, and with that effort, it's the striving towards and the letting go of. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. But as bhakti awakens, both of those things become very natural. So, the hope is the bhakti process has the capacity, as our faith, conviction, the bhakti process is pure and has the capacity to carry us to Krishna. So we stick closely, like your son's question, stick closely to the bhakti process. Make sure you have the right understanding from the right source of what the bhakti process is. Keep refining and refining, and apply that process. With the faith, you'll get there. That's our hope. Ashabandha. You know the phrase from Nectar Devotion? Ashabandha. Hope against hope. Asha. Bandha. You're busy over there writing. You want to...
I was trying to compose.
Do you want the microphone yet, or do you want to get some more time to compose? Okay, he's good.
Thank you so much. I was really appreciating what you were sharing about the mystery and the mystical part of that what you did not plan to share today. It was just really nice to hear that. And I think I don't have a question as such, as just appreciation for that, because the last I heard something like that was conversation when Hari Prashad Prabhu had visited Chicago, and somebody brought up that kind of conversation, and he had mentioned something very similar to what you mentioned about, yes, there can be differences in what the acharyas say and experience and write about, but at the same time, it is also true. Both versions are true. And like you said today, I was just appreciating that because he said when a devotee, when a pure devotee of Krishna says something, it is true, maybe it has not happened yet, but it will happen in the future, but is it this or is it that? There's no actually a question. It's both of them are true, and if it's not happened, Krishna will come back and make it happen.
Very interesting way to put it. Okay. He visited Chicago?
Yeah, it was about last year around this time, I think, 2 years.
Really? Does he have relatives here?
No, I think somebody invited him and he just came.
He
He
came.
was on a tour, like visiting,
Okay.
like different places in the U.S.
Nice.
Chicago was one.
Very good. Very good. So online, how are we doing? Okay, let's go.
The first question is from Govinda Mohini Mataji. One of my friends asked me this question today, and I am seeking your help on how to answer. She said, each religion claims that God they believe in is the Supreme God. Since you are part of ISKCON, you will say Krishna is the Supreme God, but I have hard time accepting it. She said she believes in God but having hard time accepting that Krishna is the Supreme God.
Ask her, Govinda Mohini can ask her friend, please tell me what is your conception of God? And she can ask her friend, and what's the authoritative source, the pramana, upon which you have that conviction of God? So if you have that conviction of God, and it's rooted in pramana, then I support it fully. Follow it. Follow the teaching that says to reach that position. Like Prabhupada would do repeatedly with persons of different faiths. Follow, don't deviate. Because having a faith but not following, that's not good. Follow.
More questions.
Okay.
Next question is from Amara Mataji. Can we understand that all present day Brajavasis also in the same mood as you have described today?
No. They're special souls, even ones that don't have that mood described today. One should not take them as ordinary, but they don't necessarily have the same mood.
Next question is from Sridhar Das. Could I kindly know what should be our mood and conduct towards people from other sampradaya who consider their sampradaya as the only bona fide and not other sampradayas?
We smile. Groupism is not a new thing. We're interested in the authenticity of the devotion, not, arguing this versus that. One may be very good at arguing, but one may not have genuine devotion. So persons that want to, their group might, too bad for you. This time around, you're not going to reach the goal because you're not part of my group. We don't, that's for a certain class of people, but it's not. How do we regard those people? Well, you go right ahead and think like that. We're not going to interfere with your thinking, but we're interested in the source of your faith and the way that you're manifesting that faith. Like that. We like to respect where there's genuine bhakti. It may manifest itself in different ways. And that's not a sign of genuine bhakti, us and them.
I think this is Snehavalli Mataji. If possible, please fix the audio. So
Okay.
It's not a question.
Something with his technology. Okay.
I didn't read it, Maharaj. First.
Okay.
Okay, this is from Shravan Mangal, Prabhu. Pastime of Krishna is not static. Rather, each pastime can manifest in variety as well.
Yes.
Like you mentioned about Arishtasura pastime. Could you please confirm?
Yeah.
Maharaj, I have one question. You spoke about there are differences even within our own, like Madhvacharya, what he said and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and even in other sampradayas there are differences between the same sampradayas.
Yes.
I can understand. I don't give my energy there, Guru Maharaj. I just don't go there. The only question I have is in principle, if there is a difference, like for example, you said about one acharya giving so many cows, other acharya 10 times or 20 times more. Principle is there. Principle is giving.
Yes.
So that is what the essence is. We just take it, right? I mean, we don't have to focus on the details.
Well, you can come to know what the details are, and this acharya and that acharya. So there's no harm in becoming aware of and appreciating the details.
Yeah, right. Not finding the difference of that.
Not parsing. Say, if this one's right, then that one's wrong.
Right.
We're selective about who we hear from, and we can, if something is not in accordance with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, we know where to put that. It goes over that in the bin. We don't give any attention to it. This is now speaking about maturity of bhakti. That you're not part of my group, that's immature bhakti. It's bhakti. It's just immature bhakti. It's like, in one sense, it's not entirely like, but it's a little bit like a child that is very playful around their parents and in the family, and as soon as they're with somebody outside the family, they're very reserved and shy, but once they become accustomed to this other person is accepted by our family, then they become playful and cheerful and jolly and everything. And then that circle expands as they grow. It's not just their family, it's another circle of persons. So what's really important is the character of that child, not, and they know to keep good association, and they know to stay away from unwholesome association. And if they don't know, then the unwholesome association can pollute them. So, but when there's good character, intuitively you know that's not good association. So, groupism is it's immaturity. But we don't growl or fault find, to just see what it is. It is what it is.
Maharaj, on the same lines, I heard that Baladev Vidyabhushan was initiated in the Madhva Sampradaya.
Yes.
But when he came to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he was very impressed with what Lord Chaitanya had taught. And he wanted to follow that, but he was refused. He didn't take initiation again from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but he actually followed so much so to defend the Sampradaya in Jaipur, right? So how do we, if you can help me just, speak about, he didn't really get initiated under Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but he defended,
Shiksha.
Shiksha, okay.
Well, it was before then. When after he received Diksha and had done his studies, he's from Orissa, right? Baladev was born near Ramuna. That's near his birthplace, is near Ramuna. So he wanted to go to Puri. Orients like to go to Puri. So he wanted to go to Puri and worship Lord Jagannath. When he went to Puri to worship Lord Jagannath, there he met a descendant or a disciple of Rasikananda, who also spent time in Puri, and his disciples were there. And from that devotee, he heard Jiva Goswami Sundarbhas. And he went, wow. And can I receive Diksha? And he said, you've already received Diksha. This is in Puri, before he went to Vrindavan. But you can accept Lord Chaitanya and his teachings, and if you want to learn more, go to Vrindavan. So he went to Vrindavan, and he learned from Vishwanath. So, he was a transcendentalist. But, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and his uncle. He received Diksha from his uncle. And he received Shiksha from Rupa and Sanatan. And there's no transgression. So Diksha has its place and Shiksha has its place. All right? Anything more online, or that's it? Okay. Maybe I took everybody for a spin, and I'm used to more questions, but we'll end. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.